Hi Paul, it's about the third time I'm trying to do this video, so hopefully this one will turn out good. But for the exhaust pipes, this is pretty much how I do it. Get the chassis that you want to create the pipes for, and then I also get the cab. I hide the cab for right now because I want to snake the exhaust pipes through the frames. So first thing you need to do, you need to create a mesh object. And for this one, the best one is to use a plane. So if you hit Shift A and you come up to mesh, just select plane, and now you have just a simple plane. And what you need to do, if you tab into edit mode and you have it selected to vertices, you can see that there are 4 vertices, and you need to combine them into just a single vertex. So in order to do that, make sure that all 4 of them are selected, and then right click with your mouse and you want to hit merge vertices at center. Okay, so now it takes all those 4 vertices and it merges it into one single vertex. And now what you want to do is you want to put that vertex where you want your exhaust pipes to start. So in this case, I want the exhaust pipe to come out of whatever this thing is, and then we'll run the exhaust pipes through the frames and we'll split them up and run up the side of our cab. So the first thing to do is just make sure that your vertex is aligned with this exhaust out. So in order to do that, go to orthographic mode, and we just want to hit G for grab, and we want to move it in the Y direction, and then G again and move it in the Z direction. And our vertices is in the center of our frame, so we want to move it over, so G in the X direction, and that's going to get us fairly close, but we want to get it more accurate. We want to get it right in the center of that outlet. So we'll go into the orthographic in the Y direction, and let's go ahead and we'll put the X-ray on, and we can see our outlet right here, and we want to put that vertex right in the center of that outlet. So we'll go G in the X, and a G in the Z, and that's pretty close. And then we'll make sure that when we go back into the X direction, okay, we want to make sure that it's even with this outlet. So we'll go G into Y, okay, and it looks like we're fairly close being in the center. Take it off X-ray. Alright, so now we need to snake our pipe down by the frame rail. So what I want to do, you got to extrude this so you make multiple vertices. So to extrude, you hit E, and then we're going to extrude it in the Y direction. So we'll come out, and now we want to come up a little bit. So we'll go, we want to go E for extrude. We want to go into Z. Oh, let me undo that. Okay, make sure that I didn't mess up there. Okay, so I just want to select that one vertex, and I want to extrude it into the Z direction by hitting E. And then there's an opening, and then I want to move that in the X direction, So we'll hit E, and we'll go in the X direction. Alright. So now we'll come back into the Y direction again. So I'll hit E for extrude and we'll go on to Y. And then we'll okay, make sure that it's under our cab. Okay, now I want to just come out to the other side of the frame rail. So we want to extrude it in the X direction. Alright, and then let's look at our cab and see if we're okay. So we're pretty close to where we want to be on our cab. Alright, we'll go into X-ray mode again. And let's grab these and we'll put it a little bit more under the cab. So we'll hit G for grab and we'll move it into Y direction. And now we want to extrude that into the Y direction. Alright, so now we have our exhaust pipe. And we can move these again, but I want my exhaust pipe to come up over the cab, so I want to extrude that in the Z direction. Alright, so now our exhaust pipe is over the cab. And let's move this back just a little bit. So we'll go G and Y. And we'll just move this a little bit towards the cab. And now we'll look turn out up there at the top. So I'll extrude that in the Y direction. And then I want to kind of angle up, so I will grab it in a Z, angle it up, and now I want to angle it out just a hair. So I'll grab it in the X direction and just angle it out just a hair. Alright, so this is the route of our exhaust pipe. Coming out. Alright, we'll hide the cab. We'll put it in orthographic mode again. And what we want to do, we want to add some vertices in these little turns so the turns are nice and smooth. So in order to do that, you go Shift, Control, and then B. And then to add vertices, you just use your mouse wheel to scroll and see how it curves everything out. Okay, so now I have all my curves. Okay, and now I want to turn this group of vertices into a pipe. So we need to convert this to a curve in order to do that. So while it's highlighted, I'm sorry, you got to go back into object mode. So tab into object mode. Here's our object mode. And then you want to right click and you want to hit convert to a curve. Okay, so now we converted this group of vertices into a curve. And if you'll notice over here on your menu screen, you now have a curve menu. So now we want to create some geometry to make a pipe out of it. So you come here to the geometry tab and you click down, and what we're looking for is our depth right here. So this is what's going to make the diameter of our pipe. So we'll start out at like a 0.22 diameter and just hit enter, and now we have our pipe. we have our exhaust pipe that's 0.22 in diameter. And then what you want to do, you want to bring the cab in again and make sure that it matches up with the cab and nothing's hitting, because you can adjust it right now if you need to. You can let's take this off X-ray mode, and we'll kind of look at it and make sure that so right now nothing is hitting. It looks real good, but if you'll notice that it's not very smooth. It has a lot of lines and stuff in it because there's not a whole lot of resolution to that exhaust pipe. So what we need to do, we need to convert this into a mesh. So if we select it and we tab into edit mode, you can tell it's not a mesh, it's just a group of vertices right now. So we have to convert this into a mesh. So back into object mode, in order to convert this to a mesh, you right click again and you convert from a curve to a mesh. So when we convert it to a mesh, now we have an actual mesh pipe. But it's still like a low resolution pipe. So in order to fix that, what we need to do, we need to add a modifier to it. So we'll come here to where this wrench is and we'll click on it, and we want to add a modifier. And what you want is subdivision surface modifier. So we'll add that. And usually 1 or 2 is good. So the more you add in this levels viewport, the smoother it gets. But also the more geometry that it's going to create when you apply this modifier. Right now it's not applied, so you don't really see it. But it'll add a whole lot more geometry, which affects frame rate. So you really want to keep your geometry low if you can. So we'll back this back down to 1, and you still see the lines, but they're you can apply a shade smooth. So you right click and you just select the shade smooth, and now it smooths out that pipe. Alright, so now we have the shade smooth applied to it, and now we just want to apply this modifier, the subdivision modifier. So we'll just hit it. You have to be in object mode to apply the modifier, so you just click that down there and just hit apply. And now when you go into edit mode, you can see there's a whole lot more geometry in this pipe. Alright, so now the next thing we need to do, we got the pipe made, we need to apply a material to it. So if you hit Z and hit material preview, you can see that everything shows material except for this pipe, and that's because we haven't made a material for the pipe yet. So with your pipe selected, go down to your materials tab, and we're just going to make this a chrome pipe. So we'll select new material, and we'll just call it matte exhaust chrome. Alright, so now we have to apply a shader to our new material. So we come down to the SCS materials, and we got a lot of presets for shaders. And right now none is selected, so you want to select a shader. And for chrome, I always find the best shader to use is this diff spec ad ambience non-Fresnel. So we'll select that. And then you need to make sure that your vertex colors are set to active. So we'll click that. And so now we have our base textures and we have our reflection. A reflection for chrome should be a vehicle reflection, which it automatically defaults to. And if you go to our UV map, it just says UV map, and I always like to change it, the wording on that. So I'll just change it to UV1 or actually UV0. So this green triangle tab is where you change the name of your UV map, and we'll scroll down, and then we can select UV0 as our map. And now we have to select the chrome texture. So we'll click on the file folder, and this should be in your base. If you did your base right with your initial setup, you should have a vehicle, and you should have the share folder. And then inside the share folder, there's textures. And then you're going to look for one that's called metal. So these are your metal textures. And then the best texture for chrome is usually this chrome plane. That's what I usually select. So I'll select it. So now I have a chrome pipe. Alright, but notice that we have an issue. See how we look through the inside the pipe, we can actually see the cab. It's kind of invisible. Okay, so we need to fix that. And you can either bake a texture in it. You can add a modifier to this. All right, so if you add a modifier and you come to solidify, and we solidify the pipe, and we just turn our thickness down to 0.0. Okay, so here's our pipe, but if you look inside, it's chrome on the outside, chrome on the inside, and it doesn't really look that good. So you can actually bake this pipe and create a dark black area inside this pipe. But baking's kind of difficult, and it's not really necessary. So I'm going to delete that, and I'll show you how to fix that. So what we need to do, we need to duplicate this pipe a little bit. So we'll tab into edit mode, and what I want to do is I want to select this section of the pipe, and notice that we didn't go all the way through, so you got to be really careful. Make sure that you select the whole pipe, and the best way to do that is to put on your X-ray. So we have our X-ray selected, and now we select it all the way through the pipe. Alright, so what we want to do now is duplicate this one section of pipe. So you hit Shift D, enter. Okay, so we selected that section of pipe, and then you want to hit P and then separate by selection. So now we have a section of pipe. So if we go back up here to plane, so we created a plane mesh. So now we have two sections of pipe. So if we hide the one, here was the section that we just copied, and here is our original pipe. Okay, so on this copy section of pipe, we want to just make it black, so we'll have to create another material for it. Yes, it's ATS on. Okay, so we have this section of pipe. We need to add a materials to it. So right now it has the material signed chrome because that's what we duplicated it from. So we'll delete that material by hitting the minus sign, and then you just want to add a new material, and we'll just call it matte exhaust black. Alright, and because we made this material from the other one, we don't have to activate the vertex colors, but we do need to assign a shader. And for this one, we just want a simple shader. The diff spec shader, we'll assign it. And then because this, like I said, because we had already done this before with the other one, we just duplicate it. We already have a UV0, so we'll select it. And then we just need to select a different texture for it. So we'll go back into our metal, and the best one to use for black is just this chassis base, so we'll select that. Look, I applied that to the wrong one. Okay, so let me fix this real quick. I had the wrong one selected and didn't realize it. So this was the one that we had the chrome on. So we'll just delete that material, and then we can come down here. Since we've already made it, it should already be in our list of materials. So we just need the exhaust chrome. So here's our matte exhaust chrome. We'll just select that, and so now it's chrome again. And for our tip that we want black, we'll just delete it, and we'll just, since we just made the materials, we can just scroll down and find the right material, the matte exhaust black. Alright, so now if we hide it, here's our black tip. Alright, but notice it has some specular on it, and we don't want that. We want this to be just kind of like black and sooty. We want to take that specular out. So if we scroll down, you'll see in the material attributes you have a tab called specular, and we'll click on that, and we'll just tone down the specular of that black. But now we have another issue, is even with both of these selected, we can still see through, and that's because the faces, which is normally called the normals, and these are our faces, they're all pointed to the outside, and what we want to do is point these faces to the inside. So we'll select the pipe, and we'll go into tab or edit mode, and we'll select it. And what we want to do is we want to flip these faces, so now the faces point to the inside of the pipe. So if you go up here to mesh and you come down to normals, you'll see a section that says flip. So we want to flip the normals from the outside to the inside, so we'll select that. So now when we tab back in material mode, it's like we're looking at a cross section of a pipe. So the only thing we're really seeing in this section is the inside. So now, if we do them both, so now we have that nice sooty look on the inside of the pipe, and we've got the nice chrome on the outside of the pipe. All right, and so now we want to combine these two under one object. So what you select one, and then control select the other, and so now we've got both of them selected. And then come into your work area here and hit Control J, and now you have created one object. And now I wanted to put another pipe on this side of the truck, and for that we'll need to use another modifier. So the best way to do that is to make two separate objects. Here you got the actual exhaust stack, and then you have the exhaust pipe. So we'll tab into that, and I want to make it two separate objects. Let me hide this cap a second. Okay. Alright, so there, I want to separate this one single object into two separate objects, and I want to separate them by the selection. So the way you do that is you just hit P, and then you want to separate by selection. So now I have two different objects. I have the plane 1 and the plane 2. So this is plane 2, this is plane 1. Alright, so now let me put my cab back up. So what I want to do, I want to make a mirror copy of this exhaust on this side of the truck. So the easiest way to do that, I have to add another modifier. So with this pipe selected, I go to this wrench and I want to add a modifier, and for this I want to add a mirror modifier. So now I have the mirror modifier, and I have created a duplicate pipe for that side of the truck. And you can see that they're also attached in here, but remember that this other pipe is not real. If you tab in, there's no geometry. This pipe is not real until you apply this modifier. So make sure that you always apply your modifiers when you get done. When you're happy with the results, apply the modifier. So if you tab out, and remember, you have to be in object mode to apply the modifier. It won't apply if you're in the edit mode. So click the down arrow and hit apply. So now we have geometry on both exhausts. And now what we want to do, we want to make all this one object. So you have to combine these again into one single object. So if you go up to the plane, and remember to select, and then control select, and you got both of them selected, and come down to your work area and hit Control J, and now it's in one single object, and your exhaust pipe is complete. So and that's just it. And then you can make sure that your exhaust pipe, before you apply any of your modifiers, make sure it's exactly the way you want it, because you can always edit it before you apply the modifier. So anyway, that's how you make exhaust pipes. If you have any question, just please put it on Discord, and I'll try to answer as soon as I can. If I can't explain it good, I'll create you another video. Thank you, Paul.